So again, thank you again for joining today's session. I wanted to take a quick moment and give you guys a quick recap on what to expect in the next 60 minutes. We will first get started with reviewing what is Prisma Access Insights. We will then be moving on to key use cases, visibility, monitoring, and alerting. We will then be going on to getting the most out of Prisma Access Insights and ending the session today with a Q&A session. Just a quick reminder as well that at any point that you have any questions, please enter those questions on the Q&A box and we will make sure to address those questions. I wanted to also take a quick moment here to introduce your Prisma Access Customer Success Tour Guides today, which include the following: your Prisma Access Customer Success Managers, which is myself, Wendy Sanchez, Puneet, and Farman. Prisma Access Product Manager on today's call is Janvi Reddy. And also wanted to let you all know, if you're not aware, that all of the content in this document is available at Live Community. I will be sharing a link to that on the chat box so that you guys can easily access that if you don't have access to that already. And I will be handing it on from here to my colleague, Puneet, who will be taking it on from here on.
All right. Thank you so much, Wendy, and hi to everybody. Thank you for joining this afternoon or evening, wherever you are, morning. Thank you for joining this session. Hope everybody is doing well, staying healthy. And on the topic of health today, we have an important topic, which is really about the health of Prisma Access and how to monitor and view that. And that is nothing but Prisma Access Insights. This is a great tool. It's one of my favorite parts of the whole solution because it gives you a lot of visual representation of what's going on. So let's jump right in. Before we get started, deep diving, I want to mention that we have this Insights discussion in two parts. The first part is today, which is an overview. And the second part, we're probably going to do in the beginning of April. If you've seen the calendar, you'll see beginning of April, on April 7th, there is a deep dive. So we'll probably do a deeper walkthrough at that time. Today, we will run through some of the screens and give you an intro. So take a closer look at it. Now, if you are familiar with the Prisma Access Insights from its earlier days, you would have noticed that there was a widget on the hub, which used to say Prisma Access Insights. There's a little bit of change there. Now you will not see the Insights widget, you will just see Prisma Access. And if you click that, you'll see the tenants that you have access to. And if you click one of those, it'll open the Insights app. So just a little change, nothing different. If you see something that looks like this, perfectly fine, no issues at all. You can also look at insights from Panorama. I know a lot of you will be using Panorama for managing your Prisma Access. So there is a option there under Cloud Services. You'll see Insights and Autonomous DEM. There's a little change there. So just make a note of that. You can launch the Prisma Access Insights apps from there too. This is the Prisma Access Insight widget. So if you click Access, it'll open one of these and then you click this. So that is the Panorama. If you're using the cloud managed console, if you're not using Panorama, then this is relevant for you, which is if you click the Prisma Access Insights, you will see your insights. Plus, you will also see this Manage option on the left navigation, which is nothing but your cloud management console. So it's fairly normal. This has all been merged into one, making it a one-stop shop. So this actually makes it a little easier for you. All right, now going into the actual Insights navigation. So the way we're going to cover it, we're going to cover the navigation, the way it actually flows in the left navigation, right? So there are a bunch of options here, and all of them relate to Prisma Access. The first three options that you see here are the ones that really give you insights into the health of your Prisma Access environment. So the remote network, mobile user service connection. The next two options really confirm the connectivity and communication between various Prisma Access nodes and tunnels. And the last option here is alerts, which is to really go into something that needs your attention. And that's, again, a very important piece of the solution. There are two other things that you can play around with. One is the time range. The default is 1 hour, but you have these other options going all the way to 30 days. You have 15-minute, 1 hour, 24-hour, 7-day, and 30-day. So you can go in there. There is also an option here, the drop down. If you have multiple tenants set up under a super tenant, so if you have a super tenant, subtenant set up, you can actually switch between various subtenants out here. So that's a option that's available to you. All right, so that's about the navigation. It's fairly intuitive, nothing very complicated. I'll move on to the summary dashboard. So the summary dashboard, as the name says, is a dashboard summarizing your entire Prisma Access Insights environment. And it's pretty much a bird's eye view. If you're really looking to get a very quick peek and see if anything needs your attention, this is the place to go. Instead of going through all these 5 or 6 different options, you can just go to one and take a look at it. And it has a bunch of widgets, which we will get into. The default time range set out here is, again, 1 hour. You can change it just to get a better picture. And you can view the widgets will change based on the time range that you've selected. All right, let's talk about the widgets. So the first widget that you see on the top is basically nothing but the alerts that are out there for various components of Prisma Access, be it remote network, the mobile user connections or gateways, and the service connections. This is color-coded, and it is color-coded for a reason, to help you understand the severity of that alert. And if you want to see the details, you can click View All Alerts. Now, one thing to note here is that a lot of the time, in fact, 99% of the time, this probably will be blank. If your environment is healthy and your deployment has no issues, probably not see any alerts. And that is fairly normal. In fact, I like it that way because that means I don't have anything to worry about, right? So that's your alerts widget. The next is the connectivity status. Again, the same sequence, remote networks, mobile users, service connection. It basically gives you the connections that are live as of the last minute. So if you look at these mobile users, it'll tell you the number of users that are connected to the last minute. And same thing out here, your remote network service connection. Now, again, something to note here is that most of you will have, at least one of these alive while you're doing the implementation, hopefully. There is a chance if you've not licensed, let's say remote networks or mobile users, this will not show anything. Again, that's fairly normal. If you haven't licensed mobile users, you will not see anything here. If you have licensed everything, you'll see all of them. Just something to note. All right, talking about licensing, there is a widget, and I know a lot of times we forget when did we license it, when did we start, when did we end, or you may have other people in the team who come along as you grow your team and expand them. So there is a way to understand your licensing, and that is using this widget. You'll see something like this, and the number that you see here is the number of days for your license expiration, and it actually shows the date as well. For remote networks and mobile users both. Again, something to note here is that if you have a subtenant under a supertenant, then you will see this under the supertenant. You won't see this under the subtenant because subtenant really inherits the supertenant licensing. So this will only appear at the supertenant. If you only have one tenant and one deployment, you will see this, no problems at all. All right. Moving along to the next one, this is the Prisma Access location status. Now, you might ask me, what is this location? This is basically the actual Prisma Access compute location where you have activated your gateways or your service connections from. And this is what is that widget that shows you what's the connectivity status. And again, color-coded, red, amber, green, just to help you understand the severity of what's going on at that location. You can again drill down and get a better view using the detail tab. All right. Now, another piece of the dashboard which is not visible when you first launch the summary is called the map view. So the summary is visible when you click this tab, but the map view you have to click manually to go there yourself. And actually, it is a bird's eye view of your entire Prisma Access deployment across the globe. Hopefully, most of you are using it across the globe. If not, then you will see only those widgets that are in the location that you have installed and activated the Prisma Access solution. And it gives you a bird's eye view. The widgets are color coded. So what is this about? What it does is if you hover over the widget, you will see a very detailed description, and it's basically for that location what's going on, like how many Prisma Access remote networks service connections are up or down, how many users are connected. It gives you a very good picture of that. Plus, it also gives you a color which kind of indicates whether everything is good, needs some attention, or something is down, and you need to do something about it. If you're in the process of implementing Prisma Access solution and things have not come up, yeah, you might see things are down, need attention. Don't worry about it. Once your deployment is fully live and config is confirmed and everything is all green, it'll stay green. Hopefully it doesn't turn anything other than green. All right, so that was about the summary. What I'm going to do is now we will jump into the other pieces of the solution, and I will hand it over to Farman to cover that. So Farman, over to you.
Right, thank you, Puneet. Hello, everyone. I'm going to jump into the remote networks. And the first thing we have in remote networks is the monitoring summary. And with the monitoring summary, we have some really cool widgets. I'm going to start from the top 5 open severity and go in the counterclockwise fashion. So the top alert we have here is, top 5 open alerts by severity. And basically it will show you, any open alerts, right? So if you don't see anything there, that means everything is healthy. On the right, we have deployed Prisma Access locations, and it's basically a map where you can see all of your remote network sites and basically their status. Next we have is top 5 most active Prisma Access locations. And basically it shows, it basically enables you to understand the Prisma Access locations that have the most bandwidth consumption for your remote networks. It's a trend graph basically, and you can hover over those trend lines for insights into your bandwidth consumption at a specific instance. You can also view your peaks and lows to better estimate the bandwidth capacity for your environment. And the last one we have at the right bottom corner is top 5 sites trend with the peak bandwidth utilization. And that also shows the total bandwidth utilized, for top 5 sites. Again, it's a trend graph, and you can hover over it and it will show you bandwidth consumption in megabits per second. On the left bottom corner, we have top 5 sites approaching maximum available bandwidth. It's a bar graph widget, and it shows which site based on the allocation is reaching maximum bandwidth. And finally, we have site and trend tunnel status basically. And the site and tunnel status shows you your remote network sites and the tunnel associated with it. As you can see, there are less sites, but most tunnel, because a particular remote network site can have multiple tunnels associated with it. And it can show you the status, whether it's up, down. You will only see warning if the site is up, but the tunnel associated with that particular remote network site is basically down. So you will see warning at that time. Next slide, please. All right, next we have map view. So map view is newly introduced, and it provides basically a bird's eye view of all of your Prisma Access compute locations and the tunnels connected to it. You can basically hover over it and it will show you all the tunnels and their statuses. You can click on the location, the compute location, and it opens up a side pan, as you can see on the right corner, where basically you can see the health of that particular location and the consumption, your bandwidth and total sites connected to it. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. And finally, in remote networks, we have the site list. And basically, site list provides you all of your remote network site details in one tab. We have this site status distribution widget, and as you can see, this shows you your total remote networks. So in this case, we have 345 remote networks, and it also shows you the status, whether they're up, down, or any of them in the warning state. You can click on the color code and it will filter for you the appropriate site based on the colors. On the right, we have aggregate bandwidth consumption over time. And again, it's a trend graph to understand the consumption against your remote networks. And you can do filter by average tunnel ingress or egress, or you can also do peak bandwidth utilization for those tunnel. And lastly, we have, as the last one right here at the bottom is basically all of your remote network sites. And it also gives you some additional information, your site status, how many tunnels are associated with that particular site, and what is your aggregate bandwidth allocation for that site. You can actually click on that and it will open up another window where you can drill down specifically for that site, which we will cover in the deep dive later in the later session. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, next up we have mobile users. So in mobile users, we have, again, similar setup, just like we saw in remote networks. We have top 5 alerts by severity, and it will only show you alerts that are open and need immediate attention. One thing to keep in mind, that all of these alerts that you see here cannot be cleared manually unless the issue is resolved or fixed on the back end, right? So you will always see the alerts, and if it's fixed, then they will go away. So just something to keep in mind. On the right side, we have mobile users, and that basically shows you the license, right? So you have, in this case, we have 275K licenses. That is basically total license purchase. And then 91K user basically is the unique users that are connected in the last 90 days. So we keep track of them because licenses are based on the last 90 days. Up next, we have connected users, and connected users basically shows you all of your connected users. Based on the time frame that you select. You can also, it's again a trend line, so you can click on it or you can hover over it, and that will give you information about your users. The map view is still there, right? And it shows you all of your mobile users' locations and their statuses. You can click on it and it will take you to the map view we will cover in the coming slides. At the right bottom corner, we have top 5 most active Prisma Access locations, and that basically will show you, top 5 sites based on the user connected to a particular gateway. And finally, there's 2 more. We have IP pools reaching maximum capacity, and that is a new real-time graph. And basically, it will tell you how much IPs are utilized for your specific region. A very important region, basically, it can help admins scale and add new subnets once they see, it's reaching the capacity limit. And finally, we have GP version distribution. That shows you your connected users and the user that are connected to which GP version agent they are running on the machine. So it gives you two important information, and for compliance reasons, it's very important. It can help you to see which version the users are running. Let's get the next slide, please. The map view basically shows you all the mobile users' location and their statuses on the map, right? And it provides visibility on the count of unique users that are connected for a selected time frame. We also have a flight path view, right? And it helps basically highlighting locations from where the mobile users are connecting. So very important, cool map view for your mobile users. Let's go to the next slide, please. And similarly, we have mobile user list, and it's basically will show you based on the time frame how many users are connected. So the first widget right here is basically the total number of licenses and how many users are connected based on the time frame. On the right, we have the trend graph, and it basically shows you the same information, but you can hover it based on the time frame and see a little bit detail. And last but not least, we have the list view, where you can see the user that are connected to, their username, the unique user IP, what time they log in, what version they're connected to, and all of that information. Again, you can click on it and you can deep dive into further for that particular users if you wanted to gather more information for a particular user. So that's pretty much it about mobile users. Let's go to the next slide, please. Service connections is newly introduced. And we have similar structure. We have monitoring summary. It's the whole graph basically feels the same way as remote networks, right? We have top 5 open alerts by severity. If you don't see in this example, we don't see anything here because there's no issues. On the right, we have Prisma Access locations for your service connection and their statuses. On the on the bottom right, we have top 5 most active Prisma Access locations. And basically based on the bandwidth, it will show you the top 5 service connections locations. On the left, the last one we have is service connection and tunnel status. Again, it will show you your total number of service connections and the tunnels that are associated with it. So pretty much the same as we saw in the remote networks. Let's go to the next slide, please. And finally, we have service connections list, and it will show you, the list of all of your service connections. The top left corner is the status distribution, and it shows you, their status, whether they're up or down. On the right, we have aggregated bandwidth consumption over time. And again, it's a similar graph that we saw in the remote networks. It's a trend graph where you can see the consumption and averages and peak bandwidth utilization. And finally, we have the list for all of your service connection with a little bit more detail. You can see if there's any warnings, what are the remote IP addresses, how many tunnels are associated with it, and their peak bandwidth utilization or consumption. So those are the 3 main components, your remote networks, mobile users, and service connections. Next up, if you can go to the next slide, we have Prisma Access locations. And basically, Prisma Access location is a centralized page which shows you information about all of your Prisma Access locations for your remote networks and mobile users. So the first graph on the top left, is Prisma Access location status for all of your remote networks. So it will show you all of your remote networks and their statuses, up, down, warning. And then we have top 5 location, a bar graph, which will show you basically consumption based on the bandwidth and your top 5 remote networks. On the right side, we have Prisma Access location status for mobile users. And basically, again, same pattern. We have list all of your gateways, mobile user gateways, and their statuses. And then the bar graph shows you the top 5 locations based on the user connection to those gateways. And the list we have is basically the same information, but a little bit more detailed information about those sites, their statuses, etc., and whether they're up or down. You can all export this information to CSV, and for reporting purposes, or if you wanted to deep dive more into it. Next slide, please. Tunnels. The tunnels page basically shows information about, centralized page. Again, it will show you all of your remote networks and service connection tunnels information. So all in one place, right? So the first graph or the first widget is tunnel status distribution, and it will show you all of your tunnel, right? And their statuses, whether they're up, down, and you can also see, if there's any inactive tunnels or not. On the right, we have aggregate tunnel connectivity trend. And again, it's going to give you bandwidth information, right, for those tunnels. And finally, we have a list view at the bottom, and that basically will give you the same information, all the information about your tunnel, their statuses, the throughputs. And one really cool thing about this one is, there's a number of disconnections as well. So if a particular tunnel, keep disconnecting a lot of time, it will give you how many times that particular tunnel disconnected. So you can take a proactive action as to why that is happening and troubleshoot further. So that's pretty much it from the tunnel perspective. And finally, we have the alert page. So as we all know, alerts and notifications are very important for any admin, and Prisma Access Insight basically alerts the administrators when something is not right in their network or environment. Right. So the first widget we have is alert-based severity, right? And basically we have critical, high, medium, low, and finally notification. So those are 5 major severity breakdown. And so if there's any upgrade coming, your Prisma Access upgrade, you will see that blue graph. Basically, that's a notification, and it tells you that some major upgrade is coming, etc. On the right, we have total alert distribution over time, and it's just a trend graph to show you how many alerts generated based on the time frame you select. And finally, we have a list format where we'll show you all the alerts. You can filter based on the time or based on the severity as well. And basically it tells you the alert, what is that about, what time it generated, that kind of information. You can click on it and it will open up a new window where you can drill down into the alert as well. You can also, again, export all this information in CSV to further, drill down into a particular alert. Next slide, please. And finally, we have subscriptions. So you can subscribe to the Prisma Access alerts if you wanted to get notified through email. But there are a few important steps that we need to make sure that we take. Number one is that we need to have a CSP, Customer Support Portal account, before adding the user. And that user should have an admin access. So once those two are there, then you can add the users. And basically, if something happens, then those users will be notified. If you click, and if you go to the next slide, we do have a sample. So this is how it's going to look like. So if something is wrong, and if an alert is generated, for instance, in this case, the tunnel went down, you will get an email that, hey, something went wrong, and it will give you detail as to what is wrong. Like if the tunnel is down, you will see there as well. You will get also notification about upgrades. If there's any upgrade coming, you can get those to your email as well. Next slide, please. And that's pretty much it about Insight. As my colleague mentioned, we do have a deep dive session later where we'll go more detail into Prisma Access Insight. Over to you, Paneet.
All right, thank you, Farman. This is the last part of this webinar, and this is something that we've covered before. So you should be familiar with this. This is about upgrading to Prisma Access 2.0. Most of you are familiar with this topic by now. You can look at the 2.0 release features. There's a lot of cool things going on, and you can take a look at it by going to the live community. There is a link and there is a document which actually gives you a deep dive. If you have any questions, feel free to join the office hour session with your questions, and we can certainly clarify. To be ready for the upgrade, there are 3 important things you have to do. The first one is what Farman just mentioned in the end, is to subscribe to the notifications and alerts in Insights. This process is going to be only through Insights. If you've been a customer for about 6 months or so, earlier our process was a little different. Now it's driven through Insights. So this is an important change for you to note. Second, your minimum software versions have to be compliant, and most of you should be compliant, but just in case you're not, this is an opportunity for you to get upgraded on the Global Protect, the client version, and the Panorama version. Last step is to allow list your IPs, and you can pretty much get the IP list using the API. There is documentation again on the tech docs page, how to retrieve your IPs. And obviously, I'm sure there are experts in your organization who know how to whitelist or allow list them. This is a very important step again, because we use the reserved IPs during the upgrade process to ensure that the solution is working seamlessly even during the upgrade. All right. So talking about the upgrade notification, you will see that this is the kind of notification you will receive. If you haven't received it by now, you should be receiving it about 21 days before your upgrade is scheduled. So that's how the banner is going to look like. You might get an email if you're subscribed to notifications or alerts, which says, hey, you've got an upgrade notification or something like that, right? So once you click that, lo and behold, you'll get a screen like this where you see some options. And since this is a 2-step upgrade, we're not upgrading everything all at once. We're upgrading the first location in the first weekend and then everything else in the second weekend. You got to make the selection on which is your first upgrade location here, the time window, and the software version. So this is an important step again to make sure you select the right location. Just a little bit of advice there. Location, I think most people ask, what kind of location should I pick? You should pick a location that you feel you won't get any disruption, just in case your upgrade doesn't go as planned. Hopefully it will not. Everything should go well, but just in case, right? And again, people ask, hey, what is this preferred time window if I'm in a different time zone? This will be the local time zone. So let's say you're in US East, this window will apply to US East. If you're in Germany or Australia, this will be Australian local time. So whatever location you pick for that location is this time window, right? So that's important. During the whole process, you'll get alerts and notification if there's anything you need to look at. You'll keep getting notified. So again, it's important to have these alerts subscribed to so that you're updated and informed on this whole process. Allow listing, we covered that. Important step to look at. If there is anything that you need help on during the upgrade process, before, after, whenever, there's always a tech support team, world class. You can create a case using the support portal. I'm sure everybody's familiar. Last but not least is the status page notification. And this is status.paloaltonetworks.com. It's a public page. It basically gives all Palo Alto notification. You can subscribe. Highly recommend this because you will get alerted. Let's say there is something going on in the global Prisma Access environment, something to do with latency or something to do with connections, connectivity, location-specific issues. You will get notified if you're subscribed to the updates. And what this means is you'll get an email if there's any issue. So you'll get all the notifications, but you can always filter out what you want to see, what you don't, right? So this is an important piece. Again, this is on the public page, status.paloaltonetworks.com. All right, that brings us to the end of this webinar. We're going to open up for the Q&A. But before we do that, just a few things. Friday, we have office hours, open Q&A session. So bring along all your questions. If you have anything outside of the topics that you've heard so far. The next webinar is on the 17th of March, which is a week from now. Time is going to be a different one. And then there is also a Prisma Insights webinar, which is coming up on April 7th, which is going to be a follow-up to this one. So just those three things to make note of. And that's all we have for today. Let's open up for any questions. Wendy, do we have any questions?
We do have a few questions that were answered already. Trying to see if there's any other open ones. Also, a quick reminder to everybody as well that you will be receiving a survey. So please make sure to fill that out. It's very helpful for everybody. So just a quick reminder on that. We did have two questions and they were both answered.
Yeah, folks, don't be shy. Feel free to ask your questions. There is an option for you to put in that Q&A box. So you can ask the question. And we have Janvi. She is the expert. She's the one who wrote the product. So you can ask any question that you want. This is the opportunity for you.
Great. Looks like there's no additional questions. And if that's the case, I think this is a great way to wrap this up. Please feel free to ask any questions. Via email, if anything come up later, or join our office hours and we can address any questions if anything comes up afterwards.